What horrifying and paranormal phenomena have you encountered?
When I was 3 years old, I told my parents that my great-grandmother came to me in a dream and said that her legs no longer hurt her. I'm not mistaken. She had problems with her legs due to diabetes or something else. She ended up dying that night. My parents got a call shortly after I told them about my dream, a pretty creepy coincidence.
As a child, when I had a high temperature, being unconscious and drugged by pain, I heard a strange voice all the time. It was a deep voice of a person who counted from 1 and higher. As the number increased, the voice became louder and more intense with age. It began to happen less and less, and now I still don't hear it. Scored on it. I think it's some kind of stupidly repeating nightmare. But just recently, I found out that my sister experienced the same thing as a child. Not the most terrible crap, but nevertheless, when I try to comprehend this phenomenon, goosebumps run through my body.
There was a pretty big Alice Gorge near my family's old house. I slept on the ground floor and my room was at the back of the house for 5 years. I saw some middle-aged man wearing a flannel shirt, blue jeans, and a red hat. Once he passed near the window of my room with a dog lash in his hand. Every time he stopped briefly in the same place, looked back, and then continued walking towards the gorge. It should be noted that that house was built relatively recently. It was located in the suburbs of a small town and everything that was there before that. There was a continuous forest. I think that one day this man lost his dog in the gorge, and all this time he was trying to find it.
Stories like this make me think that any paranormal activity is just an event from a past timeline that is somehow looped in a certain area. Such events exist completely by chance, like this dude who is looking for his dog. For example, here I am, now sitting at home on the couch and writing this comment on Reddit. Maybe in 100 years, someone will see some kind of echo of how I do it.
In my mother's old apartment, I had the feeling that someone was watching me all the time. Then I started waking up constantly at 3 a.m. One of the nights when I woke up, I heard someone calling my name. It was a female voice, but I didn't recognize him. She continued to call me by name, and the voice came closer and closer to my bed. But at the same time, I didn't see anything. I got scared from the bed and ran to my brother's room. I climbed into his bed and tried to wake him up, but this goat slept like the dead. He still sleeps like that. I even heard footsteps following me to his door. After that, every time I woke up in the middle of the night, I just ran about his room and went to sleep on the top bunk. We had bunk beds. My mother still does not believe that something like this happened to me. Fortunately, we lived there for only a couple of months and then moved out. I was about 10 years old. I was lying and trying to sleep when I heard a strange sound from somewhere in the ceiling. In the following days, I began to notice that the room was very hot, although the ventilation had only recently been replaced. So my father decided to check the shaft. When he bent over some instrument, I raised my head and saw a terrible picture. A thin man was looking at us through the ventilation. I pretended not to notice him and wanted to run away, but I was afraid to leave 2 cats at home. So I took a paper towel and a pen and wrote, "There's a man in my air vent." Dad did not make out my scribbles and asked what I wrote, and then we heard a knock from upstairs. My father immediately understood everything, grabbed me and called the police. This man was arrested, and I still remember how I raised my head. I see his face, and I can't even scream in fear.
Through the baby monitor, I heard a woman singing very softly in the room with my daughter. This repeated several nights in a row, and I already believed that the house was cursed. He remembered how the doors opened by themselves, remembered all the strange sounds he heard in the house. Until one night I heard Taylor swift through the bad blood baby monitor. Damn Chinese baby monitor managed to connect to a local pop radio station.
My friends and I got into the car, slammed the door, and at that moment a shrill female laugh was heard from outside, but we were all already in the car, and there was not a soul outside.
One night, I was lying on my side and was already beginning to fall asleep when I felt a slight pull of the blanket behind me. I immediately realized that a cat was walking on it, and then I opened my eyes and saw a sleeping cat in front of me.